The doorbell rings, voices drift in, and in an instant your cat is gone. One moment she was there, curled on the arm of the sofa, or watching the room with quiet authority. And the next she has vanished beneath the bed, behind the curtains, or into some hidden corner of the house that even you rarely remember exists. It is easy, almost automatic, to read that moment as rejection. She does not like it. She is being rude. She is scared. And if you have ever stood there smiling awkwardly while a guest asks, "Where is your cat?" you may have felt that familiar pinch of embarrassment, as if your home has revealed something unflattering about your companion. But what if the story is more delicate than that? What if hiding is not your cat turning away from the world, but trying to survive it on her own terms? Before, it can look like stubbornness. After, it begins to look like intelligence. A cat who disappears when guests arrive is often not saying, "I don't want love." She is saying, "You need space to feel safe." For an animal whose sense of control matters so deeply, a sudden flood of unfamiliar footsteps, new scents, louder voices, and shifting attention can feel overwhelming. The room is the same room, but the atmosphere has changed. The rules have changed. And when a cat cannot predict what will happen next, retreat becomes a front of. There is something deeply human in that, if you think about it. When the world becomes too much, we all look for a place to breathe. For a cat, that place may be under the bed, where the ceiling is low and the shadows are kind. It may be behind the sofa, where she can watch without being watched. It may be in the quietest room in the house, where the noise arrives softened, like rain heard from far away. Hiding is not always a symptom of fear. Sometimes it is emotional self-regulation, a small private ritual that helps a sensitive creature gather herself again. And this is where many cat owners begin to see the behavior differently. Not as a problem to fix, but as a message to understand. Why does one visitor send her running while another is barely noticed? Why does she seem confident one day and invisible the next? What does she need from the room, from the people in it, from you? Those questions matter, because the answer is rarely simple. And once you begin to look beneath the surface, you may realize your cat has been speaking all along, just not in the language of words. When the doorbell rings, a cat does not hear company. She hears a rupture. The familiar rhythm of the home is broken by new voices, new scents, unfamiliar footsteps crossing sacred territory. What seems like a simple visit to us can feel, to her, like an unannounced shift in the entire landscape. Before, she was relaxed, watching the room from the arm of the sofa, or stretching in a patch of sun as if the world were perfectly ordered. After, she is gone, leaving only the faint rustle of movement beneath the bed or the quiet shadow of a tail disappearing behind the curtains. And yet, this disappearance is often misunderstood. We call it shyness, antisocial behavior, even rejection. But a cat hiding is not always saying, "I don't want you." More often, she is saying, "I need a moment to understand this." In that moment, hiding becomes a kind of intelligence. It is the way a cat gathers herself, lowers the volume of the world, and returns a sense of control to a situation that suddenly feels too large, too loud, too loud, too loud, too loud. If you have ever noticed your cat watching from a distance while guests laugh in the living room, you may have seen this quiet strategy at work. She is not absent. She is listening to the tone of the room, measuring the movement of people she did not choose to meet, and deciding whether the environment is safe enough to step back into. That pause is not weakness. It is self-regulation. It is emotional balance in action. For many cats, especially sensitive ones, every visitor is a storm of information. A new smell on a coat, a different stride across the floor, a voice that rises and falls in unfamiliar patterns. What feels ordinary to us can overwhelm a cat's finely tuned senses, so she retreats, not because she has no feelings, but because she has too many all at once. And if we are honest, there is something wise in that. Cats do not rush toward what unsettles them. They preserve their peace first. They trust the body's need for distance before asking for closeness. Perhaps that is why their behavior can teach us so much about trust itself. Not every relationship grows through pursuit. Some grow through patience. If you've ever wished your cat would simply more social, ask yourself this: are you asking for connection or for compliance? Sometimes the difference changes everything. And once you begin to see hiding not as a problem to be fixed, but as a message to be understood, the whole conversation with your cat begins to open in a new way. The moment the door opens, the house changes. A new voice enters. A new scent drifts through the air. Footsteps cross a floor your cat has mapped with invisible precision. And in an instant, the familiar world becomes uncertain. To us, it may look like rudeness. To a cat, it can feel like the sudden loss of control. Before, we tend to imagine a cat hiding as if she is simply being difficult, as if she has decided to withdraw her affection out of principle. But cats do not think in terms of manners the way people do. They think in terms of safety, distance, and choice. When guests arrive, your cat is not necessarily rejecting anyone. She may be trying to protect herself from a flood of information she cannot ignore. A new perfume, a louder laugh, a deep, unfamiliar voice. Even the rhythm of strangers moving through her territory can be enough to make the room feel too full. And this is where hiding becomes something more than fear. It becomes a strategy. Under the bed, behind the sofa, inside the quiet room at the end of the hallway, your cat is not disappearing from the world. She is creating a boundary inside it. She is saying, in the only language she has, "I need a place where nothing reaches me right now." For some cats, this is brief and healthy. They observe from a distance, wait for the house to settle, then return with careful steps and soft eyes, as if testing whether the atmosphere has become friendly again. For others, the reaction runs deeper. Their body remains tense, their ears stay low, their breathing stays shallow. They may stay hidden long after the guests have left, not because they are stubborn, but because their nervous system has not yet received the message that the danger is gone. If you have ever watched your cat vanish, the moment the bell rings, you know how easy it is to take it personally. But there is something moving, even humbling, in recognizing that her silence may be a form of intelligence. She is not being antisocial. She is managing herself. She is choosing distance over panic. And perhaps that is a lesson for us too. That connection does not always begin with approach. Sometimes it begins with approach. So the next time your cat slips away when visitors come, pause before calling it bad behavior. Ask yourself what the room feels like to her. Ask what she might be trying to protect. Because once you start seeing hiding as communication, everything changes. And then the real question becomes not how to make her come out, but how to make the house feel safe enough for her to choose it on her own. When the doorbell rings, a cat does not hear company. She hears the floor change under her feet. She hears voices arriving without warning, footsteps crossing her territory, unfamiliar scents drifting through the air, and the rhythm of the house becoming something she did not choose. To us, it may look like she is fleeing the people, but often she is really retreating from the loss of predictability. That is why hiding can be less about rejection and more about regulation. A cat that slips under the bed is not always saying. Sometimes she is saying, "I need to feel the edges of the world again." Beneath a sofa or inside a quiet room, her nervous system can settle. The shadows do not always mean fear in the dramatic sense. Sometimes they mean relief. In the stillness, she can watch. She can listen. She can decide. And for a cat, that choice is deeply calming. This is where many well-meaning people make the mistake of taking the hiding personally. They call her shy, rude, or difficult. But a cat is not measuring politeness by human standards. She is measuring safety. If the room feels too bright, too loud, too crowded, or too full of sudden movement, she may need distance before she can be social again. For some cats, especially sensitive ones, one unfamiliar visitor can feel like an entire storm entering the house. And when we understand that, instead of chasing her out from under the bed, we begin to think like someone offering a safe harbor. We lower the volume of the moment. We let her observe without pressure. We stop asking for affection as proof of trust and start respecting silence as part of trust itself. If you've ever watched your cat disappear when guests arrive, there is a good chance you've seen this instinct in action. And maybe you've noticed something else too. Once the house becomes quiet again, she returns as if nothing happened, calm and composed, as though she was simply waiting for the world to make sense again. That is not defiance. That is a cat protecting her inner balance. And in the next part, we'll see why that balance matters so much more than many people realize. What looks like fear is often something much more precise: calculation. A cat does not simply vanish when guests arrive because she has failed to be social. More often, she has already read the room before anyone has even taken up in it. She hears the doorbell cut through the house like an alarm. She catches the unfamiliar scent of another body, another voice, another rhythm entering her territory. And in that moment, she makes a choice that is deeply intelligent, even if it seems cold to us. She chooses distance before the world becomes too much. Before, we might have interpreted that silence as rejection. After, we begin to see it as self-protection. A cat hiding under the bed is not necessarily saying, "I don't want you." She may be saying, "I need to feel the edges of my world again." For an animal built around control, predictability is not a luxury, it is the foundation of emotional balance. When that balance is shaken by loud greetings, unfamiliar movement, and hands reaching too quickly, hiding becomes a kind of shelter for the mind. And this is where so many loving people make the same mistake. They crouch near the sofa, calling softly, trying to coax her out. "Come on, sweetheart, it's okay. Nobody will hurt you." The intention is tender, but from the cat's point of view, the invitation may still feel like pressure. If she is not ready, every attempt to pull her forward can deepen the very anxiety we are hoping to dissolve. The better question is not, "How do I get her out?" It is, "How do I make the room feel safe enough that she may choose to come out on her own?" Sometimes that means giving her a hiding place that is actually allowed, not a secret she must defend. A quiet room, a high perch, a covered bed, a bowl of water nearby, a scent she knows. A human who has learned to sit still and let trust move at its own pace. Because trust, in a cat's world, is not built by persuasion, it is built by consistency. And if you have ever watched a cat slowly emerge after the voices soften and the room settles, you know the beauty of that moment. It is not obedience. It is not obedience. It is the quiet decision to return to connection on her own terms. If this changes the way you see your cat, even a little, you may already be giving her something rare. And in a moment, we'll see how to tell the difference between healthy hiding and the kind that whispers anxiety is starting to take root. So the next time a doorbell cuts through the quiet and your cat vanishes in an instant, pause before calling it rudeness. What looks like distance may actually be wisdom. What seems like rejection may be a small creature doing the most natural thing in the world, protecting her sense of safety. In that moment, she is not turning away from you. She is turning toward what helps her feel steady. Before, it was easy to believe that a cat hiding from guests was being difficult, cold. After, you begin to see something deeper. You begin to understand that her silence is a language, and her retreat is not an insult. It is a message. A cat does not measure comfort the way people do. She measures it through scent, sound, movement, and control. And when strangers enter her territory, the world can suddenly feel too bright, too loud, too close. Hiding becomes her way of restoring order to that world. That is why the kindest response is not to drag her out, coax her endlessly, or ask others to gutties to her. Trust grows in the spaces where pressure ends. A quiet room, a familiar blanket, a safe perch, a hiding place she can claim as her own. These are not signs that you are spoiling her. They are signs that you are listening. And a cat who feels listened to often becomes a cat who feels brave enough, one day, to come closer on her own terms. You may even notice that the moment you stop insisting, she starts observing. From under the bed, behind the sofa, from the edge of the room, she watches the voices soften, the footsteps slow, the energy settle. And perhaps that is the true lesson here. Confidence is not built by force. It is built by safety. Social behavior is not something you can demand from a cat. It is something you can invite. If this changed the way you see your cats hiding, give the video a like and tell me in the comments. When your cat disappears, do you think she's afraid, overwhelmed, or simply choosing peace? If you want more insights into the hidden psychology of cats, subscribe and stay with me, because there's always more beneath the surface than meets the eye.